So you're familiar with Gloria Allred. You know who Gloria Allred is?
The attorney. Yes.
So, sometimes, we are sold a philosophy by somebody who has had dramatic life experiences that we haven't had.
Right.
But they impose their philosophies onto you, and you kind of sit there and say, I'm going to buy that. But you shouldn't buy that because it may not work for your life. But because the other person is such a better salesperson, it's so much emotion into it, you buy into it, right? You got to be very careful which philosophies of people you buy. So I remember when I interviewed her, Gloria Allred. We're in her office. I walk in. And she's a perfect, for people that don't know who Gloria Allred is, how do you define who she is? She's a Michael Jordan of sexual harassment lawsuits, right? Can we say that? Yeah. And
attractive older woman, accomplished.
by the way, I had the most incredible time sitting down with her when the interview was done, because things got heated. When the interview was done, I said, "Can I hug you?" She says, "You know what, Patrick? All you have to do is ask. That's the key."
Yep.
I'm like, okay. So she gave me the biggest hug. We laughed it out. But I pushed her. She pushed me. I said, look, Gloria, you talk about feminism and women's rights and all this stuff. How many people you got working here? A lot. Why is it that the front desk clerk was a woman, but all your partners' pictures on the wall, they're all men? Well, are you? How about you, Patrick? Are you not a bigot? It was like such an interesting dynamic. But then I said, I want to find out about this lady. When I looked at her documentary, looked at study stuff on her, when she was in Cancun, do you know the story about what happened to her in Cancun in Mexico? So when she was younger, in her early mid-20s, very attractive girl, she goes to a doctor. She meets a doctor. Doctor says, "Let's go back to my practice. I want to show you my office." In the office, he rapes her. Okay, and she keeps it to herself for a while, but she creates this level of anger towards men, right? So later on, she gets married to this man. Then they get a divorce. I think after she gets a divorce, he ends up committing suicide. The guy kills himself, her first husband. And then second husband, she gets married. They get a divorce. She keeps the last name, but sues the hell out of him. And you saw what happened to her daughter. Her daughter is now kind of similar, doing what she's doing. I don't know if you're following she's following her footsteps. Similar personality, strong personality. And she's out there saying, independent women, independent women, independent women, independent women. And women are like, she's right, she's right, she's right. And it may work for some, but some actually do want to have a family, do want to have, do want to have a husband, do want to stay, build something together with them. How do you differentiate between, somebody who is selling a bag of goods that maybe worked for her because she had a painful experience? How do you process that? How do you get somebody who is listening to this saying, well, she's right, versus saying, I don't know if that philosophy is going to work for me long term?
It's very difficult to make a rational argument with people who are like seeded and steeped in emotionalism. And anger is definitely an emotion, and resentment and regret, revulsion. There's all kinds of different emotions that go along with that. So I can be the most rational guy in the world and say, here's the statistics, here's the dynamics, here's just the dots that I'm connecting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change that person's mind if she's having an emotional argument and I'm having a rational argument, because we're talking past each other. Most people, when they have a conflict of interest, or they have like, oh, you believe in a philosophy, and I'm like, no, I don't believe in a philosophy. I believe in empirical data. Here it is. The only way they can win that rational argument is by converting it into an emotional argument, and that's in a nutshell kind of what happens when you're trying to relate red pill awareness, when you're trying to relate the kind of material that I do to people who are very ego invested into, like, their personalities are dependent on that belief set. So unless they get to a point of crisis, unless they get to a point of really kind of desperation, or they have, through some miracle, they have some sort of insight about things, you're really probably not going to change their minds about it. The best you can do is to present, pick your battles, ask, lead the witness, right? Ask pertinent questions at the time when those topics arise. But as far as like when we're talking about like this cultural narrative of the strong, independent woman right now, it's practically a brand. We've been talking about the strong, independent woman since 1970, since Gloria Steinem. Okay, and
why is that a broken philosophy? Why is that a broken philosophy?
It's a broken philosophy for several reasons.
Some people swear by it.
Independent of what? What are women independent of? Men. They're independent of men's provisioning. So when we go back, remember I told you how everything goes back to the micro?
Yeah.
The micro level is this. For women, women's mating strategy is hypergamy, okay? And I mean that on two fronts. It's dual. It's not just one. Like a lot of people mistake hypergamy as, oh, well, women marry up. It's not just about that. Women also are looking for short-term sexual genetic benefits. They want the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun on spring break. You know, they want the hot fireman that arouses them and gets their blood boiling. And then they want the guy who's also, like I said, attraction, who is the guy who's a good long-term security prospect. So it's CADs versus dads. That's kind of like the dynamic that women have to choose. They have to find the best fit between those two things. In today's society, really since 1970, we have developed a social order that has told women you don't need to worry about long-term security. We've got no-fault divorce. We've got child support laws. We've got the Duluth model of feminism. We've got more women in the workplace. And just go on down the line of all the benefits that women have accrued since the time of the sexual revolution. All of those point to one thing, which is long-term security for women. So when we're talking about like abortion on demand, that's a fail-safe for bad reproductive choices. That is the function of abortion, is to say, you know what? Well, he's not a good prospect for the future, but this guy is, and so therefore we have that option. Just having that option, and that is exactly why women will fight tooth and nail to keep abortion legal. That's number one.
You think that's the reason?
Absolutely, that is the function of it. So women will say, well, it's because of bad decision. What else is it? I mean, is it bad philosophy? Is it bad religion? Is it bad whatever?
So let's process that.
What is the purpose? What is the latent purpose?
So what you're saying is if a girl hooks up with an NFL player, she'll keep the baby, but if she hooks up with a neighbor because one night she was alone and he was a school teacher, regular guy, she may abort that baby but keep the NFL. And that's what you're saying?
And it's exactly why you have no seat at the table when we start talking about abortion laws. You don't have a uterus, and therefore you don't have a say.
You know what NFL trained on that, by the way, just a side note? NFL trained that every time you have sex with a condom, flush the
condom. It was the NBA that did that too.
I mean, now it's everybody.
Have you seen what happened recently in the news in the tabloids with Drake and the hot sauce and the condom situation?
You know where he got that from was Tom Leykis from back in the late 90s.
Because I did a segment on that. Everyone's like, Tom Leykis, Tom, like, who the hell is that?
Tom Leykis, yes.
My question is like, Drake, why are you putting Cholula sauce in a freaking condom? Just flush it down the toilet. I don't know if it was an environmentalist or whatever.
I believe it was 2001. The NBA released a press release to all their players who were on road trips because they had such a high incidence of women that they were sleeping with while they were on road games. Essentially, they would use a condom, and the women would, let's say, inseminate themselves with the leftovers in the condom so that they could have a kid with an NBA player.
Of course.
So
that is a goal of many of the
it was
ladies
so
out
common
there.
that they had to make a press release for that. And of course, Tom Leykis being the extreme guy who has, this is you should put Tabasco sauce in there. So like when she does that, she'll get
But continue. You were saying, continue. You were going to a point there with feminism movement and why it's not an effective strategy. Abortion.
And that's just one factor that goes along. And so what we have done is we've established a social order where men are unnecessary. And women today will say this: we don't need men. We're strong.
I don't need no man.
I don't need no man, but I want a man. Okay. What man do you want to get with? What man is that? It's usually the guy who's the quote-unquote stereotypical alpha Chad guy, hot guy in the foam cannon party. She wants the alpha seed side of hypergamy, not the beta need side, because at least there's this idea that side of security, that side of her mating strategy is going to be settled. And when they get to the point where they're 33, 34, 35 years old and they're asking me, Rolo, where are all the good guys? How come I can't find a guy who is, makes more money than me or is ready to go forward? They're all so irresponsible. They're all threatened by strong, powerful women. And the only answer I have for them is you have created yourself into the man that you wanted to marry. And so when women hit me up and they ask me about this and they say, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to be to find a long-term guy? And they're 34, 35 years old, and they get very, very frustrated. They're like, I guess I'm going to die alone. I guess that they've resigned themselves to being a spinster. Let's just say
an old spinster, exactly.
And so what I say is, well, what are the men that you're looking for? What are they looking for in a woman? Well, they're looking for femininity. They're looking for a woman who's hot. They're looking for sexual availability. They're looking for a woman who can nurture, who might be a good mother in the future. I mean, there's all of these sort of conventional feminine qualities that they don't embody anymore. And so when they say, well, what do I got to do? I got to play dumb. I got to play the ditzy blonde. I've been told my whole life that I needed to be in charge and powerful and everything else. And as Patrick was saying just a minute ago, is women want to be, or they believe that they need to be in those positions of power because they can't depend on a man. Men are irresponsible. Men are untrustworthy. Men, like Gloria Allred, for example, I don't need no man, or they have a very misandrous attitude towards guys as a result of life experience or whatever. But it doesn't even have to be something as dramatic as that. It can be simply like watching Disney Pixar movies that do nothing but say you can do anything. You can be an astronaut and have babies at the same time, and you can, be in the military and fight wars, and you can go and be a computer, whatever it is. The sky's the limit, girl. And you have 3-4 generations of women who are raised on that. They believe that they have to be the one who provides that security for themselves. So as a result, you have careerist women who are getting more degrees than men. We constantly point at men when we talk about this, but let's look at the stats here. There are more women who are enrolled in college. There are more women in doctorate programs. There are more women who get master's degrees. Just educationally speaking, we can parse that out. Women are making more money than men are these days, or increasingly more anyways. And then women spend more money that is part of the family unit. Right now, 90% of American homes, the woman is the one who makes all of the big economic decisions for those homes. So it's not necessarily earning capacity or this wage gap kind of thing. It's who is making the spending, who holds the purse strings. And we can see that on the family level, and you can also see that on the societal level as well. So if you go look at who's in charge of the IMF right now? Who's in charge of the Fed? Who's in charge of the EMF
Janet
right
Yellen,
now?
you're saying?
Well, yeah. You look at, I think it was on Zero Hedge